Hello everyone, this is Yutaka again. I'm your instructor for the series of Sintoism, and welcome back. I'm glad that you're back here. So let's begin. This is the tables for this course. In the last two classes, I focused on Shinto culture and Japanese religiosity, and also Shinto, its brief history. For the first class, Shinto culture and Japanese religiosity, the one thing that, you don't have to remember everything, but maybe one thing that I really want you to remember is this photo that represents Japanese religiosity. In the first class, I wanted to point out that religious priority, P-R-U-R-A-L-I-T-Y, priority, it's a very difficult English word to pronounce. Religious priority as major characteristic of Japanese religiosity. And what this photo tells us about Japanese people's religious priority. So when a couple get married, many couples get married in the church. It's still very popular, even though they don't really believe in God, or they are not Christians. Even though they're not Christians or believe in God, they still get married in the church because it's a very beautiful things to do. And when they have a baby, they go to shrines. So it's the middle one. They go to shrines to get blessings for their children. Okay. And when they die, they have a funeral at a Buddhist temple. So it's not three different kinds of people, but it's about one person or one. It's about one couple. The same couple gets married in the church, and the same couples go to shrines to get blessings from at the shrine, and they have a funeral at a Buddhist temple. So there has been an increasing number of Japanese who adopt this way of using different religions at three important points in their life. Respectively. The frame of mind of the Japanese, in which they don't care much about observing the practices of different religion, is expressed. This is what I mean religious priority. And I pointed out, so this is very much Japanese religiosity. Okay. In the second class, so that's the one I wanted to remember from the first class. And the second class, maybe I think I wasn't clear enough. So I would try to make it more direct this time. So in the second class, I started from this question, some sort of a statement that this Japanese priority is very much rooted in Shinto culture. Okay, so in the second class, Shinto, its brief history, I briefly sketched from Yayoi period until Shinto revival period as a way of introducing a history of Shintoism. And in Yayoi period, so there are many things I talked about, but maybe two or three things I want you to remember from the second class. The first one is firstly, in Yayoi period, when people recognize there are some people living in the land of Japan, core elements of Shintoism were already there. So what was the core and a very important element of this was animism. And I think either you already learned what animism is, or you will be studying, you'll be learning animism. I don't know which one, but basically, so you have to learn it deeply, but just to make it simple, animism is the idea that everything's God's lives in everything, not only animals or human, but stones, trees, etc. Okay, so when people recognize some people living in Japan, the land of Japan, animism was already there, and with other elements like shamanism, spirituality, and etc. The teaching, the idea of animism became a very core understanding of Shintoism. And throughout history of Japan, from Yayoi period to Yamato period, through Shinto revival, I hope to show that Japanese people did not hesitate to combine different ideas of religions. The obvious case was when Buddhism or Confucianism were introduced to Japan. What they did was not, well, so when something new is introduced to your country, some people don't like it because it's foreign. I'm sure you don't appreciate raw fish, even though some people like it, right? So some people didn't like the idea of Buddhism because it's foreign to them. But on the other hand, some people really like it, and you can relate. Something new is introduced to your country. Like some people really love sushi and anime, right? And some people don't. So same thing happened when Buddhism or other ideas like Confucianism were introduced to Japan. Some people liked it, and especially you have YouTuber, you have influencer, SNS influencer. When they say things, many people many people are influenced by the comment of YouTuber or SNS influencers. Same things happened in Japanese history. One very popular prince said, "Oh, I like the idea of Buddhism." People start to follow him. So, but what they did was didn't try to reject or throw away everything about Shintoism, but they tried to combine good things about each religions and make a sort of like a third way of practicing Buddhism or Shintoism. However, the core teaching, the very pure sort of teaching of Shintoism started to decline when Buddhism became really popular. Okay. So yes, so that history was quite long, but at the end, at last, Shintoism again became a very back to the game, and that was Shinto revival period. And who was a champion? His name was Motoori Norinaga, and he was a physician, but also he wanted to re-understand the beauty of Japanese history and culture. And the way to do it was to revisit the ancient text, ancient history of Shintoism, because it was the oldest recognized oldest ideas in Japan. So he influenced many people, and Shinto was back in the game. So today I will move on to Shinto and politics. And here I try to illustrate how the idea of Shintoism, yes, it's back in the game, but it's back in the game not only a cultural, not only culturally, but more socially and politically. And this has been a very very important problem of Japanese people's political life, especially for Japanese Christians. So I'm going to focus on Shinto and politics. Yeah, so I already told a recap about Motoori Norinaga. He didn't have this intention to make it like a political force, make Shintoism a political force, but his intention was purely cultural and academic. He wanted to revive the beautiness of Shintoism. Okay, so now state Shinto period. So, Motoori Norinaga, he didn't have political agenda, but just purely academic and culturally. But after the Meiji Restoration, the new imperial government needed to rapidly modernize the polity and economy of Japan. It often happens when a country try to unite people. And unite people and encourage people that they share the same identity. The Meiji government felt that those goals could only be accomplished through a strong sense of national unity and cultural identity. With state Shintoism as an essential counterweight to the imported Buddhism of the past, and the Christianity or other Western philosophies of the present. So here, the work of Motoori Norinaga seems to be appreciated because what he did was to try to revisit the ancient history of Japan and found that Shintoism is the central idea. So the government thought, they needed something to hold on Japanese people tight, and often it's the one that unite people was religion. Religion can unite people. And the Japanese government at that time didn't think Buddhism would do that, because originally it was a foreign idea, but they thought Shintoism would do the work. So in 1870, the Japanese Emperor Meiji established Shinto as the official religion of Japan in place of Buddhism. So this is the declaration of state Shinto, and with this declaration, the Haibutsu Kishaku, literally abolish Buddhism and destroy Buddha. Edicted came to a place. It is a term that indicates a stream of thought continuous in Japan's history, which advocates the exclusion of Buddhism from Japan. More narrowly, it also indicates a particular historic movement and a specific historic events based on that ideology, which during the Meiji period produced the destruction of Buddhist temples, images, and texts, and forced return to secular life of Buddhist monk. So the picture, picture on the right hand is what happened. So this used to be a Buddhist like statues, but many of them were destroyed during this period. And how many? Between 1872 and 1874, 18,000 temples disappeared. However, since the people continued to embrace both religions, in 1877, Buddhism was allowed to be practiced by people, and yes, so again, yes, Japanese government tried to exclude Buddhism, but because they realized Buddhism was already very popular among the people, so what they did was say that it's okay to practice Buddhism, but you can't evangelize it. So that's the deal. So in 1890, the imperial restrict on education, what we called Kyoik Chokugo, was issued. So even though they said no, it's okay to practice Buddhism, they didn't stop to use Shintoism as their central political agenda. And one of the very strong action that they took was this the introduction of the imperial rescript on education. And in this, when this was issued, students were required to literally recite its oath to offer yourselves courageously to the state, as well as to protect the imperial family. These practices was used to fortify national solidarity through patriotic observation at shrines. This use of Shinto gave Japanese patriotism a special tint of mysticism and cultural introversion. You know it if we read it carefully, which we are going to do now. So I read it to you. Ye, our subjects, be filial to your parents, affectionate to your brothers and sisters. As husbands and wives, be harmonious, as friends true. Bear yourselves in modesty and moderation, extend your benevolence to all. Pursue learning and cultivate arts, and thereby develop intellectual faculties and perfect moral powers. Furthermore, advance public good and promote common interests. Always respect the Constitution and observe the laws. Should emergency arise, offer yourselves courageously to the state, and thus guard and maintain the prosperity of our imperial throne, conveal with heaven and earth. So this was a strong statement to say that Japanese people are required to follow, and it's required to follow this statement. Such processes continued to deepen throughout the early Showa period, when state Shinto became a main force of militarism, finally coming to an abrupt end in August 1945, when Japan lost the way. Japan lost the war in the Pacific. So, current period, which is after the World War II. So this isn't a history course, so I don't have much time to revisit what happened around that time. But Japan its defeat in World War II brought about this establishment of state Shinto. So you remember, 教育直後, it was to encourage, motivate Japanese people to fight for the nation. And Shinto, to fight for the Japanese nation, because the emperor was believed to be the gods of our nation, children of God for Japanese people. So by by making emperor as a divine existence, the Japanese government say, yes, we have to fight for him. We are fighting for our God. And that sort of religious spirit was used to legitimize many things, which include invasion of our countries. So, but Japan's defeat in World War II brought about this establishment of state Shinto. In 1946 AD, in the New Year's Declaration, Emperor Hirohito, so that's Showa Tenno, destroyed its chief foundation, but this chief foundation by disavowing his divinity. And in the same year, General Douglas MacArthur in America of the US military forbade the use of public funds to support Shinto. So this was the birth of state religion and state separation policy. So meaning two things: the emperor is no longer God; it became the symbol of Japanese nation. And second, they forbade the use of public funds to support Shinto. Why? Because the government was using the idea of Shinto to encourage people to fight. So some people think that following the war, Shinto has persisted with less importance placed on mythology or the divine mandate of the imperial family. Instead, shrines tend to focus on helping ordinary people gain better fortunes for themselves through maintaining good relations with their ancestors and other gods, other kami. Shinto has largely reverted to its pre-Meiji state. So I already said that the emperor is now the symbols of the state and of the unity of the people, as the Japanese constitution defines. And people believe that its political role was diminished. For many people, Shinto became a very cultural thing, or connecting with family. So it was believed to be, it wasn't about politics anymore. So it's been a few decades after the defeats, after Japan's defeat, and Constitution promises that we don't mix up religions and politics anymore. But various problems with Shinto are rising in contemporary Japanese politics, and Japanese Christians are protesting. So I tell you what's happening to Shinto scene, and lastly, briefly, I introduce how Japanese Christians, especially Japanese evangelical Christians, are protesting against. So what's happening in Shinto scene? I introduce you 2 or 3 key events, key issues. And first one is the Yasukuni controversy. Yasukuni Shrine, it's in the photo. Yasukuni Shrine is originally founded by Emperor Meiji. You remember who established state Shinto? Originally founded by Emperor Meiji in 1869 to commemorate who died in service of Japan. So, died, for example, wars. So, who dies in service of Japan? Many people die, but also including those who are recognized as war criminals. They are also enshrined in at Yasukuni Shrine. So who are those war criminals? There are many, but Japan invaded Korea and China, and they did many. Some people did many bad things, and so that's war criminals. So Yasukuni Shrine also enshrine those war criminals, which might be okay just to enshrine those in the shrine. But why it was the problem? Recognized as a problem when former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Some other prime ministers did this, but this is the most recent. One of the most recent things happened in Japan. Former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, he visited the shrine as a public figure. Why was the problem? So I told you that the Japanese constitution promises religion and politics separation policy. So it's okay for him to go there as in his spare time, as privately, but he went there as a public figure, and where his salary comes from, that's our tax, right? So he using few hours of service for visiting the shrine, which was believed to be violation of separation, religion and state separation policy. So that's the first one. Secondly, because war criminals are also enshrined in Yasukuni, some people claim him that that's the action of glorification of war criminals and return to the war regime. So it hits global attentions, like the Chinese and Korean government became really mad about his insensible actions. So Yasukuni controversy still continues. The Japanese government is trying to rationalize Yasukuni again after many years, when you remember the government cannot fund a particular religious places, but liberal democratic policy is trying to do that. Second issue, very similar issue, but controversy over national anthem. So we just had a Olympics. I don't know how many of you watched Olympics. So how many of you we actually heard Japanese anthem? You might, especially during the Olympics. So the lyrics of national anthem goes like this: 1,000 years of happy life be thine. Live on, my lord, till what the problems now. Be age united, the great rocks shall grow, whose vulnerable size the most doth lie. So this is to, many things, many anthems are like this. and Japan's anthem is not exception. This
Exception?
anthem was used to encourage Japanese people back in World War II. It, you know, anthem is some people get really energized and help them to realize, oh, I'm the part of this nation. And this spirit was used to encourage Japanese people to fight in the war. Okay. So why this is a problem? So the Japanese government is trying to require public teachers and students to sing this anthem, and if they don't, they can be punished. And actually, some teachers didn't because of because of their Christian faith, because the anthem says about the Lord. You know, it's about worshiping. It used to encourage people to worship the emperor as a child of God. And some people just don't like the idea of this kind of nationalistic trend. So some teachers didn't stand up, or they didn't sing, but they got fired. And some people are actually suing the local authority for do that. So a controversy over national anthem. So this becomes a very it has become a problem in Japan. And similarly speaking, former Prime Minister Mori said things like this on television. He said that Japan is a country of the gods with the emperor at the center. We have been working for 30 years to have people firmly acknowledge that. So it sounds odd in Japanese. It might not in your context, but it's very odd to for a prime minister to say such a thing, to use the language of to use this kind of religious language on media as a political figure. So Yasukuni controversy over Japanese anthem, or this Prime Minister Mori's public figure speaking using religious language to try to encourage people that Japan is a nation, a country of the gods. So, like other countries, you might be laughing, but it's this nationalistic trend can be seen everywhere around the world, and Japan is not exception. What the government is trying to do is to make Japan great again. And how do they do that? Was to remind Japanese people that Japan is a country of gods. Shinto is a central idea for Japanese people. Therefore, visiting the shrine, Yasukuni Shrine, is to respect those people who died in the service. And yes, we have to respect the nation by standing up and singing the national anthem, even though it tells that the emperor is a child of God. Yeah. So what they are trying to do is to make Japan great again, and they're trying to use the idea of Shintoism to make that happen. So one more thing. So this is also what's happening. If you are interested, you can look it up when you have in your spare time. But the Japanese Society for History textbook reform is another issue. The government said trying to recite, try to change some expressions of how history is written before and during World War II. So, according to them, it's their intention to promote a comprehensive view of Japan in World War II. So what they did was to say Japan didn't invade Korea or China. Okay. So it's clearly, obviously criticized by China and Korea for downplaying the Japan invasion. And some scholars call it historical revisionism. So I hope to show that Japanese Liberal Democratic Party is trying to make Japan great again. And like some scholars argue that just like the Japanese government during World War II, tried to use the idea of Shintoism as a central political idea. The current Liberal Democratic Party in Japan is trying to do the same thing by bringing idea of Shintoism back in to a political scene of contemporary Japan. Now, I want you to watch the YouTube video here. It tells you about how the idea of Shintoism is being used by some say ultra right-wing political party, Japan, called Japan Conference. So please pause the video. Pause the recording, and please watch the YouTube video. The link was sent, I hope, through Dr. Perry. So please pause the video and enjoy, and come back when you finish watching. Okay, so hopefully you were able to watch the YouTube clip. So take out your computer or notebook to reflect on this question. What comes to your mind when you watch the video? What comes to your mind? Okay. So please do so. So the YouTube video was very clear about this movement called Nippon Kaigi, translation Japan Conference, established in 1997, joined by Shinto and Buddhist political movements. It's believed to be right conservative. And according to New York Times, it's Japan's largest nationalistic organization. And some argue that this is revitalizing Japan's civil religion. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this term, civil religion. So civil religion is the religion that is practiced or expressed outside religious context. for example, public and political events. Values and meaning of these public spheres are described or expressed religiously, not explicitly, but rather implicitly. So this is obviously exactly what's happening in this group, Nippon Kaigi. They try to use the language of Shintoism, or mention the idea of Shintoism, not very explicitly but implicitly, to remind people that we are the children of God, and that's why we have to make our nation great. And that's why we have to be strong. That's why it's okay. It's in order to protect our nation, sometimes we have to fight, okay? like we did during World War II. So here I'm not trying to discuss the issue of war here. Some people have different kinds of ideas, and if we start to talk about it, we have to have another whole class for that. So I'm not gonna expand this discussion around the legitimacy of war. But some scholars argue that this group of people is trying to go back to war regime. And one of the scholar is called Susumu Shimazono. He observes that what kind of steps Japan's Democratic Party and this also a group of people is taking, and he argues that they are it's very similar. The steps are very similar that Japan took from Meiji to Meiji period to World War II. So what happened in Meiji period? So Meiji Tenno established a state Shinto, right? To try to use the idea of Shinto to modernize the new nation, Japan. By doing so, Meiji Tenno is trying to demonstrate that Japan as a divine creation. If you remember when I introduced you history of Shintoism, there are two sacred books, and in both books, it teaches how Japan came to birth, and it's clearly that there was the influence of gods. Gods created this nation called Japan. So Japan as the divine creation, and that's exactly what they're doing according to Susumu Shimazono. And they're trying to further the imperial agenda, and they're trying to legitimize World War II as a historically and divine legitimate events. By saying so, it's according to Susumu Shimazono, they are preparing Japan becoming a country which can have a military and fight in the war. And Susumu Shimazono argues that Shinto is recognized as a Japanese traditions. And by presenting Shinto as a Japanese traditions, they're trying to form a collective identity of Japanese people, and Shinto is the central. Shinto is a central role for doing that. Again, reflections. I would like you to take a note that think about: do you think this issue is unique to Japan? Why or why not? I mean, it sounds like a political class, but not only. I just want you to reflect. You might have been surprised by this side of Japanese history and how religion is used for political parties to way forward their political agenda. But as a Christian and as a citizen of your country, I would like you and some people, a person who lives in this world that God created. I want you to think about: do you think this issue is unique to Japan? Why or why not? To recognize, to remind us that we have this problem around the world. So please do that. And after you finish, please come back. So finally, just briefly speaking, I will tell you how Japanese Christians are reacting to this nationalistic trend happening in contemporary Japan. Basically speaking, they are pretty much against this nationalistic trend because they argue that this is a violation of religion and state separation policy. As a Christian, we need to follow follow this constitution. As much as we becomes faithful to the Bible, we also have to follow think about the spirit of this religion and state separation policy. Remember, Shinto was used to legitimize violence. Many people died. Many people died in Japan, and many people died in overseas. So, as a Christian, Japanese people, Japanese Christians, think that we need to respect this religion-state separation policy, not just because this is what the Constitution promises, but to stop making the same mistake that Japan made in World War II. And secondly speaking, Japanese Christians argue that moving to this nationalistic trend is a very insensitive thing towards Korea and China. So Japan invaded Korea and China, and many people died. Going back to war regime clearly shows to many people in Korea and China that Japan is insensitive. And as a Christian, we need to listen to those those voices. We need to be respectful. We need to be very sensitive to this issue, and that's why Japanese Christians argue against this government's nationalistic trend. Not all of them, of course not, but many Japanese Christians are arguing against. And very last thing, it's all related, but they're very much concerned for returning to the war regime-like nation. They're quite worried about it. They're quite worried about Japan going back to the war. So the religion of Shinto is in conflict. So they argue that the religion of Shinto is in conflict to Christianity. The fact that Shinto in its pre-World War II form teaches the superiority of the Japanese people and their land above all others on earth is opposed to the teaching of the Bible. So they think Shinto Shintoism cannot be accepted. And also, according to them, Shintoism also fosters a pride and a feeling of superiority in the Japanese people. This type of pride is condemned by God, who says, "There is none righteous, not even one." So they don't like the idea of Shintoism, which fosters a pride and feeling of superiority. And also Shinto, since Shinto teaches the basic goodness and divine origin of its people, there is no need for a savior, and that's why it's problematic. It doesn't, according to them, it doesn't tell people about their sin. It teaches the basic goodness and divine origin of those people. So Japanese people are good just because they are Japanese. Of course, this is the natural consequence of assuming one's race is a celestial origin. So it's not really a modest idea that certain people are divinely, some particular people, ethnic group is divine. And they also argue that Christianity teaches that all of us need a savior because our sins need to be rebuked. God, of course, through Jesus Christ, took that punishment of himself so that all mankind could be brought back into a proper relationship with him. Namely, that God was in Christ reconciling the world to himself, not counting their trespasses against them, and he has committed to us the word of reconciliation. So basically speaking, not only Shintoism is problematic for Japanese political scene. Japanese Christians, especially evangelical Christians, are arguing that the idea of Shintoism is dangerous, politically speaking, also morally speaking, because it doesn't tell the human weaknesses, human sin, the nature of sin, and the need of salvation. And therefore, Japanese Christians, many Japanese Christians are against the idea of Shintoism. So this is coming to our end of today's course, as well as this series of Shintoism. I hope to show that I hope I was able to introduce you basic ideas, cultural ideas of Shintoism, and how it is relating to contemporary Japanese society, and how Japanese Christians are responding to this issue between politics and Shintoism. So now, as a final reflection, I want you to take out your computer or notebook and fill out to reflect these questions. What surprised you most? What interested you most? What is one thing that you learned today and that you want to tell those who don't know anything about Shinto? And lastly, how did today's content make you reflect your own Christian faith? So after you doing that, I think this is for me to say goodbye. and I pray that your education continues to flourish. I hope you will learn many things in order to become a good servant of Christ, a good follower of Christ. I pray that wherever you are and wherever you go, God will protect you and bless you, and especially in this time of pandemic. And maybe hopefully we get to see each other. Maybe if it's not in this life, I'm sure we will meet someday in heaven. So it's very sad that I couldn't see your faces, and yes, it was a very good experience to me. So I also thank Dr. Perry for giving me this opportunity. It's been honored and to get to know you via Zoom call. So thank you very much, and best wishes and blessings.